SummerSlam 2025. The night that changed everything. Picture this, 50,000 screaming fans at MetLife Stadium, their voices echoing through the New Jersey night as CM Punk, the Second City Saint, the rebel who walked away from WWE for a decade, stood mere seconds away from capturing the World Heavyweight Championship. 10 years of exile. 10 years of bitter feuds, legal battles, and burned bridges. All of it was about to be worth it. But then, Seth Rollins happened. You see, what happened at SummerSlam wasn't just a cash-in. It wasn't just another Monday Night Raw betrayal that we forget about in 2 weeks. No, this was something far more sinister. This was the moment that Seth freaking Rollins revealed his true colors, not as the architect of greatness, but as the architect of destruction. And here's the kicker that nobody saw coming. CM Punk might be planning the most shocking comeback in WWE history. I'm talking about reforming the Shield. Yes, you heard that right. The most dominant faction in WWE history could be making a comeback, and CM Punk, the man who was never even an original member, might be the mastermind behind it all. Now, before you click away thinking this is just another fantasy booking video, let me tell you something. I've been covering WWE for over 8 years. I've got sources backstage, and the breadcrumbs are all there. From Punk's subtle hand gestures at SummerSlam to Roman Reigns' perfectly timed save on Raw to Jey Uso's newfound loyalty, everything is pointing towards something massive brewing behind the scenes. Think about it. The original Shield dominated WWE from 2012 to 2014. They were untouchable. They took out legends like The Undertaker, John Cena, and The Rock. They were brothers in arms until Seth Rollins, yes, the same Seth Rollins who just screwed Punk, betrayed them with a chair shot that echoed through wrestling history. But what if I told you that betrayal might have just planted the seeds for the ultimate revenge story? What if CM Punk, the master manipulator, the straight-edge superstar who's always been 10 steps ahead of everyone else, has been planning this reunion not for weeks, not for months, but for years? Here's what's going to blow your mind. The clues have been hiding in plain sight. And by the end of this video, you're going to see exactly how CM Punk is orchestrating the most brilliant long-term storyline in modern WWE history. We're talking about a faction war that could redefine professional wrestling for the next decade. So buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into the conspiracy that's got the entire WWE Universe buzzing. Let me paint you a picture of pure dominance. November 18th, 2012, Survivor Series. The WWE Universe had no idea they were about to witness the birth of the most destructive force in sports entertainment history. 3 unknown rookies, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Dean Ambrose, emerged from the crowd like a military strike team, wearing black tactical gear and carrying themselves with the confidence of seasoned veterans. But here's what made the Shield different from every other faction that came before them. They weren't just 3 guys who decided to team up for convenience. They were brothers. They had a mission, to bring justice to an unjust WWE Universe. And brother, did they deliver on that promise? In their first year alone, the Shield accomplished what most wrestlers can only dream of in an entire career. They defeated The Rock, yes, the People's Champion himself, at WrestleMania 29. They systematically dismantled John Cena, the face of WWE, multiple times. They ended The Undertaker's undefeated streak at pay-per-views outside of WrestleMania. They were so dominant that WWE had to create new storylines just to find credible opponents for them. Roman Reigns was the powerhouse, the spear that could cut through any defense. Dean Ambrose was the wild card, unpredictable, unhinged, and absolutely fearless. And Seth Rollins? He was the architect, the technical mastermind who could adapt to any situation. Together, they were unstoppable. But what made the Shield truly special wasn't their win-loss record. It was their brotherhood. Watch any backstage footage from that era, and you'll see three young men who genuinely cared about each other's success. They celebrated together, they suffered together, and they grew together. Roman has said in interviews that those 3 years were the best of his career because he knew he had two brothers watching his back every single night. Which makes what happened on June 2nd, 2014, so much more devastating. Monday Night Raw in Dayton, Ohio. The Shield had just defeated Evolution, Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista in a decisive victory. They were on top of the world, planning their next move, when Seth Rollins grabbed a steel chair and drove it into Roman Reigns' spine. The sound of that chair shot wasn't just metal hitting flesh. It was the sound of trust being shattered. It was the sound of brotherhood being murdered in cold blood. And the look on Dean Ambrose's face, pure shock, betrayal, and heartbreak, told the entire story. The Shield wasn't just broken, it was obliterated. Seth's justification? He wanted to be on the winning side. He joined the Authority, Triple H's corporate faction, and became everything the Shield originally stood against. He became the very injustice they had sworn to eliminate. But here's the thing about betrayal, it never truly dies. It festers. It grows. And sometimes, it comes back to haunt you when you least expect it. Let me break down exactly what happened at SummerSlam 2025, because this wasn't just a wrestling match, this was a masterpiece of psychological warfare that's been building for over a year. CM Punk versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. On paper, this was already a dream match. Punk, the 46-year-old veteran fighting against Father Time itself, trying to prove he still belonged in the main event picture. Gunther, the ring general, the man who had just retired Goldberg and was riding the highest wave of momentum in his career. But the story went deeper than that. Punk had to earn this shot by surviving a brutal gauntlet match 3 weeks earlier on Raw. He went through Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, and Damian Priest in the same night, bleeding and sweating for every single minute of ring time. This wasn't handed to him, he clawed his way to this opportunity with his bare hands. The match itself was a war. Gunther, all 6 feet 4 inches and 270 pounds of Austrian brutality, tried to break Punk's spirit with those devastating chops that sound like gunshots echoing through the arena. But Punk, the master of resilience, absorbed every bit of punishment and kept coming back. When Gunther locked in that sleeper hold in the middle of the ring, 50,000 fans thought it was over. But Punk found a way to counter into the GTS, and for one beautiful moment, his decade-long journey back to the top was complete. The celebration lasted exactly 47 seconds. That's how long CM Punk held the World Heavyweight Championship before Seth Rollins' music hit and everything went to hell. But here's what makes this betrayal so much more sinister than your typical Money in the Bank cash-in. Seth Rollins had been playing mind games with Punk for months, pretending to have a knee injury, acting like he was out of action. Meanwhile, he was secretly working with Paul Heyman, yes, Paul Heyman, the man who was supposed to be Punk's advocate, to orchestrate this entire setup. The look on Paul Heyman's face when Seth's music hit told the whole story. This wasn't just a cash-in, this was a conspiracy. Heyman knew. Braun Breaker knew. Bronson Reed knew. They had all been playing their parts in this elaborate scheme to destroy CM Punk's dreams at the exact moment when they meant the most. And the way Seth executed it? Ruthless. He didn't just pin Punk, he dominated him. The stomp, the pedigree, the 3 count that echoed like a death knell through MetLife Stadium. But what happened next is what nobody's talking about, and it's the key to understanding Punk's master plan. As Seth celebrated with his new championship, CM Punk didn't storm off in anger. He didn't throw a tantrum. Instead, he stood up slowly, looked directly at the hard camera, and raised his fist in what looked suspiciously like the Shield's signature salute. The commentators didn't catch it. Most fans didn't notice it. But I did. And now you do too. Now here's where this story gets absolutely wild, and I need you to pay close attention because the WWE Universe has been missing these clues for weeks. What I'm about to show you will completely change how you view everything that's happened since SummerSlam. First clue, CM Punk's dog tag necklace. At SummerSlam, Punk wore military-style dog tags, something he's never done before in his entire career. The Shield's original gimmick was based on military tactical units. Coincidence? I don't think so. Second clue, the hand gestures. I've gone back and analyzed every single one of Punk's appearances since his return, and starting 3 weeks before SummerSlam, he began incorporating subtle fist raises and pointing gestures that mirror the Shield's signature poses. He's been conditioning the audience subconsciously. Third clue, Roman Reigns' save on the July 21st Raw. Think about the timing here. Punk gets ambushed by Seth Faction, Rollins, Breakker, Reed, with Paul Heyman orchestrating the attack. The beating goes on for almost 2 full minutes. Security doesn't come out. Other babyfaces don't make the save. But then, at the exact moment when Punk is about to be seriously injured, Roman's music hits. The crowd's reaction was nuclear. 15,000 fans in Chicago erupted like they hadn't heard Roman's music in years, even though he'd been on TV the week before. But it wasn't just about Roman returning, it was about the symbolism. The original Shield member coming to save the man who might become the new Shield leader. Fourth clue, Jey Uso's positioning. Jey didn't just randomly decide to team with Roman at SummerSlam. According to my backstage sources, Jey specifically requested to be booked in that tag team match against Breakker and Reed. Why? Because he wanted to send a message to Punk that he's willing to stand against Seth Faction. Fifth clue, the social media activity. I've been tracking the social media interactions between Punk, Roman, and Jey, and there's been a significant increase in their engagement with each other's posts. Punk liked Roman's workout video 3 days after SummerSlam. Roman commented respect on Punk's Instagram post about his championship loss. Jey retweeted Punk's statement about not giving up. These might seem like small gestures, but in the world of professional wrestling, social media interactions are often the first sign of storyline developments. But here's the biggest clue of all, and this comes from a source I trust completely. There have been multiple backstage meetings between Punk, Roman, and Jey over the past 2 weeks. Not just casual conversations, formal sit-downs in Triple H's office. The official word is that they're discussing creative directions, but my source tells me these meetings have been specifically about forming an alliance to counter Seth's growing power. And they need to act fast, because Seth Faction isn't staying static. Rumors are swirling that Seth is trying to recruit more members, potentially including some surprising names from both Raw and SmackDown. If Punk doesn't make his move soon, Seth's group could become too powerful to stop. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room. If CM Punk is really planning to reform the Shield, who's going to be in it? Because let's be honest, the original lineup isn't available. Dean Ambrose is Jon Moxley now, tearing it up in AEW and showing no signs of wanting to return to WWE. So Punk needs to get creative, and based on my analysis, I think I know exactly who he's targeting. Roman Reigns is the obvious first choice, and honestly, it's a no-brainer. Roman is the only surviving member of the original Shield who's still a major player in WWE. He's the tribal chief, the head of the table, and arguably the biggest star in professional wrestling today. But here's what makes this alliance so perfect. Roman needs this just as much as Punk does. Think about Roman's current position. He's been feuding with Solo Sikoa and the New Bloodline, but that storyline is starting to lose steam. The WWE Universe is ready for something fresh, something that reminds them why they fell in love with Roman in the first place. Joining forces with CM Punk would give Roman a chance to show a different side of his character, not the dominant tribal chief, but the loyal brother who stands up for what's right. Jey Uso is the second piece of this puzzle, and his inclusion makes perfect sense from both a storyline and a business perspective. Jey has been trying to step out of his cousin Roman's shadow for months, establishing himself as a singles competitor. But he's also shown unwavering loyalty to family, which is exactly the kind of character trait that would make him perfect for a reformed Shield. Plus, Jey brings something the original Shield never had: high-flying athleticism. His super kicks, his top rope moves, his incredible agility, he would add a completely new dimension to the group's in-ring style. And let's not forget, Jey has legitimate beef with Seth faction after they cost him multiple opportunities over the past few months. But here's where my prediction gets really interesting: the fourth member. I'm convinced that CM Punk is targeting Sami Zayn, and this choice is absolutely brilliant. Sami just won the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam, defeating Braun Breaker in what many are calling the match of the night. He's riding high on momentum. He's beloved by the WWE Universe, and he has a legitimate grudge against Seth faction. But the real genius of adding Sami is the history. Punk and Sami came up together in the independent wrestling scene. They have mutual respect that goes back over a decade. Sami also has experience working with Roman and Jey from his time with the Bloodline storyline. He knows how to be part of a faction without letting his ego get in the way. More importantly, Sami brings the heart that this new Shield would need. The original Shield was about justice and brotherhood, but they were also cold and calculating. Sami's natural babyface charisma and his ability to connect with the audience on an emotional level would give this reformed Shield something the original never had: genuine likability from day one. Picture this lineup walking through the crowd at the next pay-per-view: CM Punk leading the charge with his straight-edge intensity, Roman Reigns bringing that tribal chief authority, Jey Uso adding the high-flying excitement, and Sami Zayn providing the heart and soul that connects with every fan in the arena. They wouldn't need to be the cold, calculating mercenaries that the original Shield was. They could be the heroes that the WWE Universe is desperately craving. And here's why this lineup would be absolutely perfect for countering Seth faction. Seth has the corporate backing with Paul Heyman, the raw power with Bronson Reed, and the next generation talent with Braun Breaker. But what he doesn't have is chemistry. His faction feels manufactured, put together by management rather than forged through genuine bonds. Punk's reformed Shield would have something Seth's group could never replicate: authentic relationships. Punk and Sami's indie history, Roman and Jey's family connection, and the mutual respect they all have for each other's abilities would create a dynamic that feels real to the audience. My sources tell me that these four have been working out together at the WWE Performance Center after hours, supposedly just staying in shape, but I think there's more to it than that. They're building chemistry, testing how they work together as a unit, and probably discussing strategy for taking down Seth faction. The social media interactions I mentioned earlier aren't just between Punk and Roman. All four of these guys have been subtly supporting each other online. Sami congratulated Jey on his SummerSlam performance. Roman shared one of Punk's workout videos. Jey commented on Sami's championship celebration post. These might seem like small gestures, but in the interconnected world of modern WWE storytelling, nothing happens by accident. Imagine the pop when these four emerge from the crowd together for the first time, wearing updated Shield tactical gear, ready to deliver justice to Seth Rollins and his manufactured faction. The WWE Universe would absolutely lose their minds, and it would instantly become one of the most talked about moments in recent wrestling history. Now let me break down CM Punk's master plan, because what we're looking at here isn't just a simple revenge story. This is a chess match that's been in motion for months, and Punk has been playing it perfectly. Phase 1 began the moment Punk returned to WWE. While everyone was focused on his emotional comeback and his feuds with Drew McIntyre, Punk was quietly studying the landscape. He identified Seth Rollins as the biggest threat to his championship aspirations, not just because of Seth's in-ring ability, but because of Seth's political connections backstage. Phase 2 involved strategic positioning. Punk allowed himself to be portrayed as the underdog, the aging veteran fighting against younger, hungrier competitors. Every loss, every setback, every moment of doubt was carefully calculated to lower expectations and make his eventual rise more impactful. Phase 3 was the gauntlet match victory that earned him the SummerSlam title shot. But here's what nobody realized at the time. Punk specifically requested to face Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, and Damian Priest in that gauntlet. Why? Because he wanted to send a message to Seth faction that he could beat their muscle, their future star, and their veteran presence all in one night. Phase 4 was the SummerSlam match itself. Punk knew Seth was going to cash in. My sources tell me he figured it out weeks in advance when he noticed the unusual backstage meetings between Seth, Paul Heyman, and Triple H. But instead of trying to prevent it, Punk decided to use it as the catalyst for his real plan. That fist raise after Seth cash-in wasn't a moment of defiance, it was a signal. A signal to Roman Reigns, who was watching backstage. A signal to Jey Uso, who was preparing for his own match later that night. A signal to Sami Zayn, who had just won his championship earlier in the evening. Punk was telling them all, it's time. Phase 5 was Roman's perfectly timed save on Raw. That wasn't a spontaneous decision by WWE Creative, that was Punk calling in a favor. Roman owed Punk for helping him during his own battles with the Bloodline, and Punk was ready to collect on that debt. Phase 6 is happening right now, behind the scenes. Those backstage meetings I mentioned aren't just about forming an alliance, they're about planning the most devastating faction warfare storyline in WWE history. Punk isn't just trying to get his championship back, he's trying to reshape the entire power structure of WWE. Phase 7 will be the official reformation of the Shield, probably at the next major pay-per-view. But here's the genius part, Punk isn't going to announce it ahead of time. He's going to let Seth faction think they have all the power, let them get overconfident, and then strike when they least expect it. The endgame? WrestleMania 42. Punk wants to walk into the biggest show of the year not just as a challenger but as the leader of the most dominant faction in WWE. He wants to prove that experience, intelligence, and brotherhood can overcome corporate politics and manufactured success. This isn't just about revenge against Seth Rollins. This is about CM Punk cementing his legacy as one of the greatest strategic minds in professional wrestling history. He's not just reforming the Shield, he's revolutionizing it. What we're looking at here isn't just another storyline, this is the setup for the most significant faction war in WWE since the Monday Night Wars era. And the implications go far beyond just CM Punk getting his revenge on Seth Rollins. Let's examine the current WWE landscape. You've got Seth faction with corporate backing, representing everything that's wrong with modern WWE, politics, manufactured pushes, and betrayal of core values. Then you have Punk's potential Shield reformation, representing old school values, earned respect, and genuine brotherhood. This sets up perfectly for Survivor Series 2025, which is just 3 months away. Imagine a traditional 5-on-5 elimination match, Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and a mystery fifth member versus CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and their own surprise edition. The winning team gets control of Monday Night Raw for the next year. But the real genius of this storyline is how it sets up the Royal Rumble. If Punk's faction wins at Survivor Series, he gets a guaranteed spot in the Royal Rumble match. If he wins the Rumble, and let's be honest, the story writes itself, he gets to choose which championship he wants to challenge for at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 42 could feature the ultimate payoff, CM Punk versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, with both factions banned from ringside, settling their differences once and for all in the main event of the biggest show of the year. But this faction war would have ripple effects across the entire WWE roster. Other wrestlers would be forced to choose sides or form their own alliances. The women's division could mirror this storyline with their own faction warfare. SmackDown could develop its own power struggle to compete with Raw's main storyline. From a business perspective, This storyline could revitalize WWE's television ratings and pay-per-view buy rates. Faction warfare has historically been WWE's most successful long-term storytelling format. The original Shield's run coincided with some of WWE's highest-rated programming in the 2010s. This storyline also sets up perfectly for WWE's international expansion. The reformed Shield could tour internationally as WWE's premier attraction, while Seth faction could represent the corporate American wrestling establishment. The cultural dynamics would right themselves. Most importantly, this faction war would establish the next generation of WWE superstars. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed would be elevated through their association with established stars. Jey Uso would finally get his chance to shine as a main event player. Sami Zayn would cement his legacy as more than just a mid-card champion. For CM Punk, this represents his last chance to create a lasting legacy in WWE. At 46, he doesn't have many years left as an active competitor. Leading a reformed Shield to victory over corporate corruption would be the perfect capstone to his career. The fan engagement would be unprecedented. Social media would explode with Shield reunion content. Merchandise sales would skyrocket. The WWE Universe would have a clear storyline to invest in emotionally, something that's been missing from WWE programming for months. This isn't just about wrestling. This is about storytelling on the grandest scale possible. So there you have it, WWE Universe. The evidence is overwhelming, the clues are undeniable, and the storyline potential is absolutely incredible. CM Punk isn't just planning a comeback, he's orchestrating the most brilliant long-term storyline in modern WWE history. Think about everything we've uncovered today. The subtle Shield references, the strategic alliances, the perfectly timed saves, the backstage meetings, the social media interactions. None of this is coincidental. CM Punk, the master manipulator who walked away from WWE for a decade and came back on his own terms, is playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. The reformed Shield, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, and Sami Zayn wouldn't just be a nostalgia act. They would represent everything that's right about professional wrestling: earned respect, genuine brotherhood, and the willingness to stand up against corporate corruption and manufactured success. Seth Rollins thinks he's won. He thinks his betrayal at SummerSlam was the end of CM Punk's story. But what Seth doesn't realize is that he's just given Punk the motivation and the justification to do something that will change WWE forever. We're probably just weeks away from seeing this plan come to fruition. My prediction? The official Shield reformation happens at the next major pay-per-view, setting up the faction war that will dominate WWE programming through WrestleMania 42. But I want to hear from you. Do you think CM Punk is really planning to reform the Shield? Who do you think should be the fourth member if not Sami Zayn? Are you excited about the possibility of a faction war between Punk's Shield and Seth's corporate group? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me if you've noticed any clues that I missed. Share your predictions for how this storyline will unfold. And if you think I'm completely wrong about this whole theory, I want to hear that too. Respectful debate makes us all better wrestling fans. If this video opened your eyes to the conspiracy that's been hiding in plain sight, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. I've got sources throughout WWE, and I'll be following this story every step of the way. You don't want to miss the next chapter in this incredible saga. And make sure you check out my previous videos analyzing CM Punk's return and the rise of Seth Rollins' faction. Understanding the full context makes this potential Shield reformation even more compelling. The wrestling world is about to change forever, and we're going to be here to cover every single moment of it. From the first hint of the Shield's return to the final bell at WrestleMania 42, this channel will be your source for the inside scoop on the biggest storyline in WWE. This is your host signing off, but remember, in the world of professional wrestling, the best stories are the ones that feel real. And right now, CM Punk reforming the Shield feels more real than anything WWE has given us in years. Believe in the Shield. Justice is coming.